Let's start a new life from the darkness until the light reveals the end. What's up, everybody? Attack on Titan has officially ended. That's right, there's gonna be no more final seasons, no more final chapters, no more specials, no more anything. Attack on Titan is over. It's kind of unweird to say that. And I do think now that I know how this show has ended and now that I've thought about it a lot more, I can say confidently that this anime will be discussed for years to come. But I will get to the ending as well as my opinions on the movies or specials as a whole. I'm gonna be flip-flopping between those two terms this whole time, so just ignore that. As well as my opinions on the super controversial moment that happened in this show, which pissed a lot of people off. We will get to all of that, as well as just my general thoughts on this series now that it's over. I do want to put this out there that this will not be a heavily scripted episode or anything. This is just my general reaction, and I kind of want this to be a discussion of sorts. Just something off the cuff to get my reaction out there, because this is one of the hottest topics in the anime community at the moment, and I think it's worth it just to get my thoughts out there, especially since I have a lot to say about it. But if I do come off a little more rambly and stuttering, that's why. I usually script my videos for a reason. Man, I haven't done a video like this since Wonder Egg Priority. Damn! Anyway, now that we got all that out the way, let's get to my general thoughts on the Attack on Titan final chapters. My overall opinion on these two sets of movies, or specials, or whatever you want to call them, is really positive. I actually really enjoyed my time watching these. While I'm not going to be doing a super mega deep dive on the characters or the story or the themes or the ending or anything like that, and I'm just going to go through my general thoughts, overall, I would say I had a pretty positive experience watching these final chapters. I would even say it's better than the entirety of season 4 as a whole. However, I can definitely see why this movie would cause a lot of division. There are a lot of things that are left to our own interpolations. We will get to that though. For now, let me talk about the production real quick. I think the music is absolutely incredible. It honestly feels like tracks that you could listen to before going into a war. This is the kind of crap I want to listen to when I'm drafted. Don't draft me. Kota Yamamoto is a god among men, but it's honestly not just Kota Yamamoto that's doing it, though that song he played for the rumbling part, where they're all attacking the rumbling, was absolutely incredible, and it almost had me jumping out of my seat because I was just so excited. I also loved the fact that they brought back Linked Horizon, because while I do love Shunsei Kamade-chan and Sim as bands, there's just something about Linked Horizon doing the music and singing for Attack on Titan that just makes it feel right, you know? And yeah, they came in a big way, not just with their other song at the beginning, but also their ending song, which I will get to when I actually talk about the ending, because I think their song relates big time to the ending of the story. For now, let's talk about the other production areas, such as animation. I think the animation was greatly improved in these specials compared to the other season 4s. The CGI in this special was completely unnoticeable. You would not be able to notice the CGI Titans or anything like that. Greatly improved from the other seasons. As well as the ODM gear action shots, I thought those were greatly improved as well. They really captured the feeling of Wit's old ODM shots where it was just seamless transitions all throughout. Yeah, the action animation was greatly improved for these two specials, which ended up helping it in a big way because this final fight scene feels so massive. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of MAPPA's art. I've always thought that about MAPPA ever since they've been doing Attack on Titan. And I don't really think it's their fault. I just think they're kind of doing more of a replication of Isayama's manga style, which is kind of why the characters look a little goofy at times, but that's really it. It's been a thing for the entirety of Season 4, so it's not the biggest deal in the world, but there are some moments where the characters look kind of funny. Besides that, let's get into the other characters that this special really focuses on, because all the side cast have their moments in this show, outside of maybe one. One of the most focused on characters in these two specials is Armin, a character who's been going through such miraculous changes throughout the entirety of Season 4. He's a character who has this immense pressure on his shoulders since he was the one that was chosen over Eren, and it's something that's been weighing on him for the entirety of the season. And now, during the special, when Hanji has a big sacrificial moment, which was a great scene by the way, Armin is now having even more pressure on his shoulders because Hanji made him the commander. So now you have this 19-year-old kid who's going up against his former best friend who's become a genocidal maniac. Meanwhile, he has all this pressure on him from the two commanders who were pretty beloved in their wars. For him to be able to look forward through all that, I think is pretty admirable, especially since we saw just how much he was struggling with this stuff in the earlier part of the season. He was able to keep a rational head and use his smarts in such an emotional situation, which was pretty cool for a character we've always thought was pretty emotional. Something I'm not the biggest fan of with Armin's character is this whole relationship with Annie. I feel like that kind of came from out of nowhere. I do like the fact that they gave Armin somebody he can live for. It kind of seemed like he was lost in life, so him having something he can look forward to once Eren dies was pretty cool. Like, most of the build for this relationship happened during the time skip, so it wasn't really focused on a lot. So seeing Annie get like emotional and start blushing around Armin a lot more, while that is pretty cute, I wish they focused on it just a little bit more just so I can actually get behind this couple. I kind of brought this up earlier, but I did also love Hanji's moment in this special. Not only did it bring back her weird love for Titans, which shows us she never fully got over it, which is pretty funny, but it also was such a cool moment for this character, a real defining moment for her, something everybody will remember now. And I do love the fact that Floch came in at the end and fucked over their plans just one more time, even if they still managed to get out in the end. I thought that Floch was such an important character in Season 4, so for him to die in such a kind of anticlimactic way originally, I thought it was kind of weak. But then when he came back and fucked over the plans one more time, and then he had this much more grandiose ending to his character, I thought that fit pretty well for him. Let's get back on track to something I'm a little more about, which is the lack of impact Historia has on the plot. As someone who really loved what Historia was going through in Season 3, she was actually my favorite girl for a long time. For her to have such little impact towards the end of the series just kinda sucks. Like, yeah, I get it, she was pregnant, and a lot of people were hopping on this pregnancy plotline as something, like, important, but it really just seemed like a way to get her out of the show. Though I did really like her water breaking and showing her pregnancy during the fight scene they were going through. I thought that was pretty neat. It was like the birth of a new life and then the loss of another kind of thing. It was kind of neat. All the people who were hopping on this plotline being something important were just kind of overthinking it massively. Like, y'all really thought Eren was the father of her child? What the fuck, dog? Why would Eren ever do that? Why would Historia ever do that to Mikasa? That's just, damn, man. Damn. Back on track with some of these side characters who had some pretty big moments towards the end. I thought Levi's character was pretty solid during these specials. Once Hanj died, he became the only member of that era of the Survey Corps. He was the only one from that era, so he was almost fighting for his dead comrades. Which was fitting for his whole humanity's strongest soldier kind of thing going on. His little revenge plotline with Zeke was pretty entertaining, and I especially love how he just kind of saw Zeke and immediately went to kill him. I thought that was pretty funny, if not a little bit anticlimactic, but it was an enjoyable scene nonetheless. Honestly, Zeke had nothing to really offer at that point, because he had already been enlightened by Armin in the past. So him dying there was a fitting end for him, honestly. I honestly like the fact that he lived, because I was like 100% sure that Levi was gonna die. But no, Levi lived. He's a cripple and he has one eye, but he's breathing, damn it. But yeah, a lot of the characters had some great individual moments in this. Connie had a couple moments, Jean had a lot of moments towards the end, Wino, who has been such a highlight throughout the entirety of Season 4. I love the fact that he's so courageous in battle now, and he's one of my favorite characters in the show as well, but I could go even deeper on Wino, but this would go on for way too long. But another character I really like who didn't get a ton of moments this season or these specials was Gabby. Felt like Gabby could have had a couple more moments in there. And I get why people don't like Gabby because she killed the potato girl. And yes, killing the potato girl is a sin among men that we should hold Gabby for. However, I do think it's very interesting that this is a girl who was beaten into her that the Eldians are bad, that they're devils and all this, and then as she meets them, she slowly begins to change her mind, and in the end, she ends up becoming pretty clutch in 2 occasions with a rifle. It was pretty cool, honestly. Again, that's another character I could go more into, but I honestly don't want to spend too much time, because honestly, we have to talk about Mikasa. We will get to Eren, trust me. But Mikasa didn't go through a ton of growth on her own, but what I really loved with Mikasa's character during these specials was her connection to Ymir. This is gonna sound completely wild, and I have no way to defend this at all, so I don't even know if it's true, but it just sounds right. But I think the 2,000 years ago and later and the 20,000 years ago thing that they've been doing with the song titles and the episode titles, I think the 2U is Ymir to Mikasa. Personally. I have no way to prove that, but it just kinda sounds right. Because their characters have been tied since the very beginning. It tells us in this special that Ymir deep down loved King Fritz. So despite the fact that she could have easily overpowered King Fritz, she just couldn't do it. She couldn't kill the one that she loved. It talked about at the end what Mikasa did and nobody really knowing what she did, but that's because they weren't in the room. What Mikasa did was show Ymir that it's possible to kill your lover even though you love him. She freed Ymir from her chains. 2 characters that were both stuck in love, but one showed the other that it's possible to break out of it for the betterment of yourself. At the end of the day, Mikasa had to kill Eren, and it shows us throughout this special and throughout Season 4, ever since the rumbling started pretty much, that Mikasa was really struggling deep down with the idea of killing Eren. So when she finally takes that steps forward and realizes that the only way to stop this is to kill Eren, she ends up doing it. And she shows Ymir that that's possible. That you don't have to be held hostage by the chains to your lover. Hence why it spends so much time with her internal struggle of killing Eren. It spends the entire season pretty much doing that. Because Mikasa was always by Eren's side. She was always linked to him. Because Eren is what gives Mikasa life in a way. So when Mikasa finally breaks out of that and becomes independent, it shows Ymir that she can also do the same. I actually did not see that coming at all. Okay, I've talked about pretty much everything else. Let's get to the good stuff. Eren's breakdown scene, baby.
Fucking crying, bitch! Where? I don't wanna fucking hear it!
Y'all were pissed off at this one, man. Y'all didn't like this ending. No, you did not. People were so mad at Eren's breakdown scene that I was spoiled of it a year ago. And while I was trying to avoid spoilers so desperately for Attack on Titan, it's kind of hard to avoid it when the entire online discussion for anime is about what happened in this scene. Here's what I think about this scene. How can y'all say that this is out of character? Like, not to come off like a dick, but how? Maybe this is just me, but from the very beginning, Eren has always been presented as a crybaby loser. Like, that's just how he's always been presented to me. Like, I even remember in Season 3, people were pissed at Eren because he just kept crying. He was sitting there on his knees begging Historia to kill him, just to leave him to die. And at the time, we didn't really understand why he was doing that. It's pretty obvious now, but at the time we didn't know why he was doing that. And there's even the meme of Historia basically telling him to shut the fuck up. And that's not the only time Eren has cried. He's been a emotional brat for pretty much the whole show. So that's why this breakdown didn't seem out of character to me, because to me he has always been a pathetic crybaby loser. Like, I did think at the beginning of season 4 that this was a legit character change for Eren, that the war changed him to be this monster who is all about getting revenge even at the expense of other people's lives. But that narrative completely exited my mind the minute that scene came out where he basically disrespected Mikasa and beat the living shit out of Armin. Because no matter how much Eren may change on the outside, the one thing I feel that would never change for Eren would be his friends. He would never say that to Mikasa, nor would he ever physically harm Armin and mean it. At the end of the day, he is a guy who's always been about his friends, who's always been emotional towards his friends. Those are his driving motivators most of the time. So him doing that just felt out of character. And that's when it all kind of pieced together in my brain that he's pulling a Lelouch. This is a character meant to villainize himself from the other Eldians, so that when his friends kill him, they will ultimately be seen as the heroes who stopped the rumbling. That is the character that Eren's vision played out for him. So he played that role. He was an actor to fate, pretty much. And I feel like that breakdown was one last glimpse of who Eren really is. He's meant to look pathetic in this scene. Armin even straight up says it in the scene that he looks pathetic. And it's because Eren, deep down, is pathetic. He always has been. Just because he did a couple edgy things here and there, that doesn't mean that's him. It never was him. And when I say he's pulling a Lelouch, by the way, I don't mean like this is a Lelouch only thing, nor is it like something Lelouch has only done, because I think this has been done before. So Lelouch is the most popular example of this, so I just say pulling a Lelouch whenever this happens. But this does seem very similar to what Lelouch did. The only difference is Lelouch didn't actually use his power. Eren did. Oh, Eren definitely did. I see a lot of people say that Eren should have completed the rumbling and that why stop at 80%, but I think deep down, Eren didn't want to do the rumbling. And I think that scene shows it pretty well. He didn't want to die. He wanted to spend his time with Mikasa because at the end of the day, he's just a kid. He's 19 years old, but he was forced to play a role of this genocidal maniac, and at some point he lost himself. Now that he actually sees the clear image in front of him, the image of Mikasa living without him, of course he breaks down, because he loved her too, and deep down he always just wanted to spend his remaining time with her. And Armin, and honestly the rest of them. I know a lot of people had this idea of Eren as some kind of edgy protagonist, and I get a lot of people like those kinds of characters, but I think it's a lot more interesting when a protagonist shows this level of vulnerability. Eren was always seen as a sympathetic figure, a human character. And what's more human than a 19-year-old crying about his girlfriend? So while I do get that a lot of people don't like this scene, I feel like it was probably handled a lot worse in the manga. To say it's out of character for Eren to behave like this is just flat out wrong, and anybody who's seen the show knows that. Some of the fan base really wanted Eren to complete the rumbling. Like, I've never seen a collection of fans want the bad ending so badly. Like, what is wrong with y'all? That was the ending I had in mind, but it wasn't an ending I wanted. That's misery. That's awful. What kind of plan is it to take out all of humanity because that wouldn't lead to any wars? Armin says it in the scene himself. That's like a bad joke. Honestly, if Eren was smart, like Lelouch, he probably would have been able to come up with another way to figure this all out if he had just been open instead of villainizing himself from the beginning. What I didn't like about this scene, well, actually a couple things. It's not a perfect scene to me. Like, I think Armin should have went a lot further in. He pretty much just brings up Mikasa one time and the fact that she's probably going to spend her life with somebody else, and Eren just immediately breaks down. I would have rather it have been a lot more gradual, that mask slowly disappearing rather than it just getting whipped off at the mere mention of Mikasa. I feel like that would have made the scene a lot more emotional. I'm also not a huge fan of the phrase slave to freedom. I don't know if that's a mistranslation or something, but they use it multiple times in the show, and at that big moment it's used again, and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, maybe I just didn't understand it, but yeah, I didn't like that phrase. So yeah, is this scene pathetic? Yeah, it's meant to be. Is it cringe? Sure, you could say that, but I also feel like it's meant to be that way, because at the end of the day, I just think that's who Eren is. That's my opinion on the scene. Again, you can believe whatever you want to believe. Let's talk about this ending, because I also think it's another thing a lot of people reacted to very negatively, that it really didn't deserve this amount of negative attention. I do understand what makes this ending so divisive, because it does leave a lot of things up to interpolation. And when a show is ending, you kinda don't want to leave more questions than answers. Now I do think there were some things that were changed from the manga's ending to the anime ending. I'm pretty sure Isayama had a quote that said that it was going to change a little bit. I actually think, from what I've heard about the manga's ending, that the changes here were actually much better, such as showing the buildings becoming a lot more technologically advanced. I think that was a massive upgrade from what I saw from the manga. Because from what I saw of it, these buildings looked not nearly as technological. I think it made people misunderstand that the explosion that happens towards the end of Paradise Island happens way sooner than what it did. I think Isayama didn't do a great job visually telling us that, but in the anime it's a lot more clear that this is way into the future, and that explosion happens way after the negotiations between Marley and Eldia. Call me MatPat, because I think I actually have a working theory on when this bombing and when the after credit scene takes place, because if you translate the Linked Horizon song that plays during the credit scene, it translates to something like "to you 2,000 years later" or 20,000 years later. And I think that means that this bombing of Paradise happened 2,000 years later, and that the post-credit scene happens 20,000 years later. It seems like Eren's plan did end up succeeding. At the end of the day, Eren's goal was to have his friends live peaceful, long lives, even at the sacrifice of his own. And to that extent, it worked. He got rid of the Titan powers, they were able to live long, fruitful lives. They even show during the credit scene Mikasa's grave. It seems like she died of old age. She was buried with white flowers, which usually means purity or like virginity. So it doesn't seem like she ever really moved on from Eren, especially since she still has her scarf. Where the bittersweet part comes in is when Paradise gets bombed, which a lot of people seem to be confused on because, again, Isayama never really made clear what the timetables were in the manga. But in the anime, if my theory is right that this is 2,000 years into the future, then this would have happened by the time that all of Eren's friends are long gone. So Eren accomplished his goal, and the Rumbling plan worked, but at the same time, conflict and war still goes on. In the Linked Horizon song, and I wrote this down to make sure I got this line right, it says, "History repeats itself and it becomes zero again." This line from Linked Horizon implies that the events of Attack on Titan will happen again in a cycle because humanity will never learn from its history. At the end of the day, you can make any progress you want, you can do whatever you want, but it will always just become zero again and the cycle will repeat. This is alluded to in the post-credit scene when we see a random character and their dog walk into a tree that is very familiar to Ymir's tree. Now, this is not the same tree. I actually think this is Eren's tree where he got buried. However, it has such a striking similarity that either the founding titan is still alive and that little spinal cord thing, I don't remember what it was called, but that spiny thingy is still alive, and we are about to get a new founding titan, meaning that this whole process will start over again, or it's just a random tree. It's really up to your interpolation on what you want to take with that ending. Either the events of Attack on Titan restart again, or it ends. And honestly, we're just kind of overthinking, which I can understand why that would piss people off. Because when you end a series, you don't want to leave more questions unanswered than answered. At the same time, I kinda love that about this ending, talking about this, and I love theorizing with what it actually means. Did the Titan process restart over again? Is all this really happening again? Are we just doomed to cycle it over and over again? I love the fact that it kind of leaves us room to theorize, that it kind of leaves us room to talk about it. While I do love an ending that answers all questions and puts everything in a nice little bow, Attack on Titan leaves us with important questions that we can discuss about as a community. I do wish these discussions were a lot more civil, but I love talking about anime. It's why I started a YouTube channel to begin with. Part of me loves the fact that this is an ending we can continue talking about and we can continue theorizing what Isayama was trying to convey with this ending. But at the same time, I can completely understand where people are coming from when they say this ending isn't good. Because yes, it does leave a lot of unanswered questions. These answers to these questions might be flimsy. We honestly don't know, because everything is left to our interpretation of it. So that's my opinion on this ending. Usually I would hate stuff like that, where it's like in the credit scene it tells us a story. I usually like an anime focusing on stuff like that a little more, but with Attack on Titan it's kind of perfect, because it kind of, the mystique and allure of everything kind of just adds to the discussion even more. I love that visual storytelling Isayama did towards the end. It came off a lot better in anime form than manga form. Yeah, that's all I got. Man, how long was that? I talked for almost an hour about Attack on Titan. Hopefully this won't be too long of a video, because I feel like that would be relatively boring. Attack on Titan's over. Damn. It's a series I hold near and dear to my heart because it's something nostalgic for me. It was one of my first anime I really got big into, you know? I don't love the ending. I don't hate the ending. I love the discussion surrounding it, but I also feel like I get where people are coming from when they say they hate it. But overall, I would say I had a positive experience with the show. This journey has been such a hell of a roller coaster, starting from the very beginning, and it's an easy recommendation for anyone trying to get into anime. It's an easy recommendation for anyone who likes these kind of shonen or maybe more seinen action shows, you know? It's great. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this is something you got some entertainment value out of. If you agreed with my points, that's cool. If you disagreed with my points, let's try to keep the discussion civil. I don't want to create this area of toxicity. I don't want to create this area of bickering about the ending and what this does and what this does and what all this means. I would rather just have a nice civil discussion about what Isayama was trying to convey and what your opinions are on it and what you think about Attack on Titan. I would much rather prefer that. I understand not enjoying an ending or not enjoying something like this, but the way people have treated this Attack on Titan thing has just been super disrespectful to Isayama and to his work, and it honestly just shows me what I had already thought, and it just proves me right. People don't really give a damn about who actually makes these anime. They only care about fulfilling this imagination fanfiction in their heads. And the minute an anime creator decides to go a different path than what they expected, they immediately start to be disgusting towards them. And I don't mean disgusting in criticism form. I mean making your own manga to go against Attack on Titan as if you have any right to do that. I'm kind of rambling onwards here. This is why I can't go off script. I hope you all enjoyed. This has been Kikaya. Peace.
If I love you all, sleep it all, I'll never let you away. If I lose it all, lose it all, lose it all. If I